What's your
This
what's your
pendant was
treatment?
given to me. It's a smoky quartz, and it was given to me by a client for my birthday, I think 3 or 4 years ago. I love crystals so much. She saw this smoky quartz, and the chain is a little bit too short for my neck,
I
but I
think it's
love the way
beautiful.
that it feels. And, it just sits right over the throat chakra. So I'm a big
But
fan.
it's
I love smoky quartz is one of my favorite go-to crystals for sure.
talk to me about crystals.
So, crystals, for me, being in the mindset space, I believe that anything you believe in is going to either help you or hurt you. So, if there's something that you can believe in and attach meaning to that feels positive and good, excellent. So somebody said to me, I feel so good around stuffed animals. I'm like, great. You have something to hang on to. But crystals, which scientifically do have different vibrations to
Mm.
them and assigned different meanings of it over time, I'm sure a lot of it has been commercialized, but I don't care because I love them because they feel good and they're so pretty. So I have crystals on my mantras. Yes, see, quartz. And quartz is one of like clear quartz is one of the crystals that it cleanses all other crystals. It is really good if you ever have a headache. I put it on my temple or on my third eye, and it really seems to help. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I kept a clear quartz crystal in my bra and a rose quartz crystal in my bra 24/7, whatever it may take.
I'll be honest with you. At first, I was like, I really want to ask Michelle, but I'm afraid to ask Michelle because you are so learned, you're so wise, and you're so tough love in the best possible way. I feel like you're like see through people. Michelle is up here for me, and who am I to interview Michelle and have a
Oh,
conversation with Michelle?
stop it, Olga. First of all, we
That's
are
how I feel.
peers. I think the most important thing is just when you're having a conversation with someone is to bring your zone of genius to the table. This is just a conversation between two women. And I will say, I am very tough love for anybody who doesn't know me, but I would never tough love someone without knowing the permission is there to give it. Otherwise, I just gotta keep my mouth shut.
The way you engage with people, at least in the situations that I've seen you in, was very respectful. You're a mindset coach, but you have so many different hats that you've worn over the years. And on the human level, you're this really lovely human being with
Thank
so
you.
much warmth and so much grace and understanding. What I see with authenticity, with a lot of people, especially coaching, people kind of put on this persona and they feel they have to stick to the persona, and you can just see it, you can feel it all comes from within to start with, and you're just this really good human being.
Oh, I appreciate you. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's so sweet.
It comes from the heart. You've been crazy successful, and you put in a lot of work, a lot of years, a lot of learning into your success right now. And you had a few setbacks, including medical setbacks, which were huge.
Mhm.
Do you want to walk me a little bit through your journey right
Happy
now,
to.
how you see success, what you value? Your view of success is very different from the traditional view of success. So wherever you want to
Yeah.
take
Oh my goodness. Well, hi, can of worms. Let me open you. When it comes to success, I used to care about who knows my name and how many followers, because those were the things that I needed. I needed external validation to prove that I was good at what I did. I've been in the coaching world for a decade. And in the beginning, especially because I was working with mostly men who just viewed things very separately from me, not men as a generalization. And it was always, well, who are your clients and how much money do you make? And this and that and this and that. And I used to care about those things until I really came to the realization that the only thing that matters to me is the outcome of my clients and being able to enjoy my life.
it.
When I was working with corporate, which I was doing for 2 decades, working in the corporate world, it was all about the external validation. It wasn't until I really turned it and said, okay, well, what makes me happiest in the end of the day? And what makes me happiest now in the end of the day is getting messages from clients telling me their wins and being able to wake up and make breakfast with my son. That is the definition of success right now, is when he runs in my room at 5:30 in the morning. That is not success, by the way. That is a setback, but we're going to deal within that setback success. And he goes, let's make crepes, tortilla española, whatever it is for the day. That is 100% how I measure my success now, is how does my day-to-day life look?
Mm.
Truly.
Were there any realizations like bit by bit? This
Yeah.
doesn't feel right. You're an intuitive coach too. So
Yeah.
listen to your intuition, and what was the process like for you?
I think a lot of it came from I've coached some of the biggest companies in the world's programs. I've been their head coach for some of the largest organizations, and I've been really happy. I'm not the face of it. I'm doing the work on the back end, but I've never been the face of it. When I realized that that didn't matter to me to be the face of it, I just really loved the coaching aspect of it. There was a moment in San Diego. I was 8 months pregnant, and there was a coach that I was taking a workshop through because, by the way, all coaches need coaches. Super important because brain surgeons don't operate on themselves. And she asked a question that I thought was so fascinating. She said, if you were in a royal court, like back in the days of Excalibur, would you want to be the king, the queen, the knight, or someone else? And immediately I thought, I want to be Merlin. I want to be the mage. I don't want to be the person who's in charge of the kingdom. I want to be the person who they need to come in and fix things when they're broken, to inspire, to engage. And it
Oh,
was at that point my realization was I had been fighting for so long to be the king and queen when it
mhm.
wasn't what brought me true happiness. It was that moment that things started to shift for me. Have you ever thought about that for yourself? Who do you
No,
want to be in the world?
just starting from maybe the age of forever, 3, up until the age of 16, maybe, I wanted to be in the center stage, always in the spotlight, always, whether it comes to setting up, home theater and dancing in front of my grandma and grandpa and setting the chairs for them and giving them out tickets because I am on the center stage, or whether at the school where I would throw a full ball. So I guess that just being in the spotlight was very much there for me. And then changed so much. Like I really don't like being the it
Now you're
girl.
too hidden.
No, now I have a different problem. So I think being in charge is actually my thing. Also, it's interesting because maybe I was putting myself so much into the box that it didn't fit in for so long. I was in corporate and I had to be at public events and I had to speak and I had to be surrounded by hundreds, sometimes thousands of people and be, on the podium talking about things I probably didn't really care about.
But no, but it makes sense because sometimes we equate being in the spotlight with sharing things that we don't necessarily fully have belief in versus it's not really the spotlight that we shy away from. I can stand in front of 100,000 people and share what I believe
Mm,
because it's important to me to share the messaging, but I don't ever crave being in front of 100,000 people, if that makes sense. People would never guess I am an extreme, extreme introvert. It doesn't scare me to be in front of a crowd, but I prefer to be solo.
You're really good at listening to people. And I don't know if you're a master of physical body and the language of the body, but it seems that you are because sometimes you're reading signs of people on screen
Mhm.
and you respond in a way that I find fascinating because he just seemed to again like she's looking straight into my soul.
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, here's something that I think everyone should know is 93% of communication is nonverbal. We think the words that we're saying is explaining everything and communicating. 55% of communication is physical body language. Where are your shoulders? What is your breathing pattern? Where are you looking? How are your arms? 55% of what people are speaking to other person is done strictly through physiology. 38% is tone of voice. So when I ask a question of somebody and I say, "Are you going to do this?" And they go, "Yeah, I will. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it tomorrow." I hear in that 38% tone of voice, you don't believe it yourself. You can't convince me of it. And I can now see with your physiology, you really are not behind it. And then 7% is words, which is why, when we speak to children, we speak to pets and animals, they don't care what we're saying.
Mhm.
They see our body language, they hear the tone of voice, and on a primal level, they can hear us. And so I think when I'm communicating with someone, they think they're convincing me of something, but I can see with the majority of what they're actually communicating to me, what's really going on. So yeah, my background is in neurolinguistic programming. I'm a trainer of neurolinguistic programming, meaning I can actually certify practitioners. So I have a long history in that. And communication is just my favorite, is my favorite topic in all sense, in corporate life, in business, in relationships. It's fascinating.
You really like the word magic, and there is magic in communication. Definitely is magic in communication when you're communicating. What's your connection with magic? Where did it start and how did it flourish?
I say that real magic is done with the power of the mind. Magic, first of all, it's a highly polarizing word because for some people, they think I grew up in a very Catholic background, a very Catholic home, and they think magic is the devil work and all these different things. And then there's people in the woo-woo community who are like, magic, I can make anything happen if I believe it. Magic for me is that intangible feeling that something good is possible. I know a lot of people say anything is possible. I like to say anything good is possible because anything is possible can take someone's unconscious mind to a dark place if they're in a dark place. And so for me, the word magic, my company is Inspired Magic. My book that I wrote, Inspired Magic, Transforming Your Life with the Power of the Mind. Magic for me is tapping into the source of truth for yourself, tapping into the energy of the world and getting on the same playing field. And if there's a frequency in which you want to live at, bringing yourself to that frequency, because like attracts like, right? You can't have a lack mentality and have an abundant life. They are just two very distinct and different frequencies. So the energy of I don't have enough money and the energy of I have enough money are so vastly different. And people wonder why they can't get from A to B because they're living in A, wishing they were in B, and those energies don't just match up. So when I think of magic, I think of bringing the energy to the place where you want to be before it hits your reality.
I'm very much with you, but for a lot of people, you don't know how to quite get there. And if you were born in the mindset of it's surrounded by people who are not exactly in the abundance frequency, and you don't have enough money, you don't live in the best possible environment, maybe your surroundings in terms of people and friends and relatives are, naysayers or people who are negative for a big chunk of time.
Where do you begin? I mean, obviously, it comes with a great privilege now in my life that I surround myself with people who have beliefs similar to mine. But I grew up in a small town from an immigrant mom who came here from a third world country and a dad who lost his father at 14, grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. My parents said all the things that would necessarily give you a good mindset with money. Money doesn't grow on trees. You have to work really hard for it. People are willing to rip you off. Don't trust people, scarcity mindset galore. And so, how do you overcome that? How do you live outside of it without disowning your whole family? Because that's never the answer. It starts with first saying to yourself, that's an interesting point of view. I think anytime you say they're right or they're wrong, you're bringing too much energy to that conversation versus if somebody says to me, Michelle, magic is dumb and I don't believe in it and you're a horrible person, I can either be like, I totally disagree with you, or like, maybe I am worthless. Both of them don't serve me, but if I just let it flow by me, like, that's an interesting point of view. It doesn't harm me. It doesn't drain my energy. It's like, have you ever gone whitewater rafting before?
No.
So I went whitewater rafting in the Ocoee River a long time ago. And they say if you fall out of the boat, please don't fall out of the boat. But if you fall out of the boat, the first thing you do is you have to just lift your feet in the air, arms in the air, and just go on your back and float. The river will take you where it needs to go. If you fight it, you will bang against the rocks.
Wow.
And I think of it this way of if you just go with the flow, you know what I mean? Then tell yourself what you believe instead. So if somebody says something to me negatively, money doesn't grow on trees, it's impossible to get money. I can say that's an interesting point of view. And then can say to myself, but I found that when I follow inspired action, when I work hard, when I connect with the right people, I find it's actually pretty easy. Money flows toward me. I just let myself bathe in my own belief system.
Hmm.
Yes.
So
Inspired action.
inspired action. I think a lot of us, including myself at a certain point, just go through the motions. It's the inertia, but it's also takes so much effort to start to change. So how do you start? I know I keep like stomping my feet on the same, but what's an inspired action? How do you start listening to yourself? I work with a few people right now and they are stuck. How do I get inspired? I can't get inspired by listening to podcasts. I can't get inspired by reading these books because they don't apply to me because I am in this really crappy place right now. I don't even know where to start because that's how I lived my whole life. And like, seriously, you're talking inspired action? Like, really, look at my life. And we unravel it. We take that as a bundle and bit by bit, but it's so hard to start. It's so hard to make yourself go through those unusual motions, but also it's very hard to keep going. So
Mhm.
once you start peeling the layers off, and then it's like, and it's painful. So how do you find the inspired action, and then how do you keep going with it?
I mean, so the first step in the process is to always meet someone where they are, because if someone had a dream of making the most delicious souffle ever, but doesn't know how to crack an egg, I can't tell them, listen, you're going to be able to make a souffle tomorrow, because they will feel defeated because
Mhm.
it's not, it could be true, but we're not meeting them where they are. It's like, let's start with, is there anyone in this world who didn't know how to crack an egg who learned how to make a souffle? I ask questions like this. So, I love food analogies. So, to give an example, a single mom who hates their corporate job, who wants to work for themselves, who's made that happen. I ask these kinds of questions. And if she says yes, great, who? I want them to do research on these women
Mm.
so that they can actually see examples of not people who have been handed everything and then turn into a fortune because they had no trials, tribulations, or setbacks, but actually see women in similar circumstances to themselves do the thing they want to do. Step one is believing it's possible. Until they believe it's possible, nothing I coach is going to matter. Then the next step is, what is one thing that this person did, has, or is that is different from where you currently are? And it could be commitment, discipline, belief, waking up every morning and doing 30 minutes of work, just finding those micro habits that they can start to incorporate into their life. So once we actually get the ball rolling, you talked about inertia earlier, right? You have to get that ball rolling. It's easier to create a habit that is 7 days a week than a habit that's 3 days a week. And you're like, well, no, only 3 days a week. That's easier. You only have to do it half the time. To create habits, truly good, helpful habits, it's about creating everyday movement, then creating micro habits. For inspired action, the reason why it's scary is because inspired action comes from intuition, from a knowing, from a frequency and a level higher than a person is operating in the moment, which means that it's outside the comfort zone. So when you get that nudge that I could do this, if you don't act immediately, you'll be able to convince yourself it's a bad idea. You'll be
Mhm.
able to say, "Oh, that's too hard. That's too scary. What if it doesn't work?" Right? I have a big sign in my office that says, "Well, what if you fly?" Because people always ask, "Well, what if I fail?" Well, what if you fly? And so the inspired action portion of it is you get that inner knowing and you just take action. And action can be just one step. Don't think about the end result. It's
Mhm.
that first step. It's the following, have you when was the last time you had an inspired action moment or an inspiration to like, this is what I need
Well,
to be doing?
for me, they pretty much happen every day. I took inspired action much more when I was a kid, and then I lost it for a big chunk of time, not entirely, but when I was in the corporate world, I did much less of it because I had to follow a certain path and I felt I had to blend in. And I was a woman, like one woman in executive. I felt that I had to adjust. So inspired action was probably much more in my private life and much less in my professional life. But then I found little bits and pieces on how I could take inspired action where you would take a project and you do something different with it rather than, going the traditional path. And like, how can we flip it so that it's more impactful or more fun or both? Ever since COVID had a really profound effect on me. I felt very introspective and What is it important in my life that would make it worth living? I forget about it because the mundane takes over. But what is the inspired action right now that I can take? And it's from little things like I'll go and say something to someone in a store. I do it every day, several times a day. And I don't do it because, like, okay, I'm going to go and say something to that person at the store right now because they're wearing a cool dress. I just go and do it because it's like I feel it. You know what? I just feel inspired to do this right now to that person. And then they feel so good. And the energy is the exchange is really good. So it just lifts the vibration, right? But in general, I think it's hard to, we always go into the how. Like, well, how are you
Mhm.
going to do it? And then you're like, oh, well, if I don't have the resources, whether it's time or money or people, or maybe I shouldn't even start because maybe not. So I think the how is something that oftentimes overpowers the importance, the inspiration.
Yeah.
Like now I'm developing a program that came from inspiration. So Hawaiians, instead of having a conversation, they say talk story. We talk story when we get together and we just talk about life. We catch up.
Mhm.
We, talk about our kids. We talk like talk story. Then I researched it, and it's a fascinating background. It goes hundreds and hundreds of years back when Hawaiians didn't have a written tradition and they talked story. So all the stories would be passed on between the ohana, between the people, then the larger community, then on to generation to generation.
But you just brought up something so important, so important, just the word story. The
Mhm.
word story is the reason why people are stuck. When you talk about why aren't people taking inspired action? Because they've told themselves a story of who they were, of who they could be, of what their generation is like, what their past is like. And I tell people all the time, I think if they could take nothing else away from me is that their biography does not dictate their future. What you have or have not had in your life, what you've done or haven't done in your life, who you used to be and who you are today, none of it matters. The past doesn't matter. It's whether or not you're willing to make changes to the story in the future moving forward. A story I used to tell myself for years was, I'm too old to. That was part of my story. So when I was 30, I said, I really want to go back and get my MBA in business. I'm too old to do that. I'm too old. That's crazy. And at 33, I had this realization, if I had just done it then, done my GRE, gone to grad school, I would be done. My MBA would be finished. So I decided and I vowed to never use that old story of I'm too old to. So I thought I want to get more into yoga. And I'm like, I'm too, no. I stopped myself and I went online and I went yoga teacher training and I signed up. And the next week, even though I had done no yoga in years, I signed up for a yoga teacher certification that was starting the following week that ended up being 20 hours a week.
Wow.
But I did it. That was like one of the biggest inspired action moments. I signed up, I paid for it, I did it. And I'm so grateful for it because it changed my life. That was the first moment I realized that coaching was a part of my world. And so this was 11 years ago that this happened. So yeah, we change our stories.
So you mentioned you come from a small town with
Mhm.
an immigrant mom, the dad who had some difficult life circumstances, who sounds like lovely people, but also with some limiting beliefs that they were putting on you. And I'm sure it took you a while to shed them, or for most of them. What was it like for you, just walking through that and then getting your certifications? It's very interesting. You're certified in neurolinguistic programming, which is a whole universe in itself.
Mhm.
Um, but then also building your life and having a baby and
Mhm.
then dealing with some serious health concerns and rebuilding parts of yourself and your business after.
Yeah. I'll tell you a moment that I haven't shared publicly. It was when I was 27 years old, and I had a boyfriend who, and I promise this will make sense. I lived in a different state than him, and he wanted me to move to where he was to be together. So I put my house on the market that I owned. I quit my job. I was leaving all my friends behind, and I was moving to San Francisco. And in driving to San Francisco, I caught him cheating with all of my stuff in a truck. I was in my car with just a couple bags of clothes. In that moment, on my way, I got on my BlackBerry at the time and I Craigslist to find a place to live because I was going to stay with this boyfriend, right? And I got a place on my own in a city where I had zero friends. And I slept on the floor of this place I just cut a check for. And like, I had this big, beautiful, huge house. And now I'm in a 400 square foot apartment in San Francisco, studio apartment, sleeping on the floor with pillows made of my clothes and blankets made of my jackets, devastated, thinking, I don't know how to survive this. I just gave up everything. And that morning I went for a walk in San Francisco. I was in the Marina area and I'm walking, I don't know my way around anything. And I'm walking up this giant hill and I get to the top and there through the clearing is the Golden Gate Bridge, which is iconic and beautiful. And something clicked in me that just said, you can survive anything. Like there's nothing that can take you out. You are at rock bottom, but you're going to be fine, and I was. And a few months later, I ended up meeting my husband. If I wasn't in San Francisco, I would not have met him. I would not have our marriage. I wouldn't have our child. So thank God I had that cheating jerk of an ex-boyfriend make me move to a city where I knew no one, right? And so it was at that moment I realized I can survive anything. So when things come up and bad things have happened. So last year I was diagnosed with breast cancer and I had to put my business on hold for months and months and months and months and months and get paid nothing. But I already knew because at 27, I already learned that I can survive anything. When you
Yeah.
know, you know.
Going back to when you know, a lot of people don't take that inspired action.
Right. I could have gone back.
You
I
could have
still
gone
owned
back.
my house. It was on the market, but I could have taken it off the market. I could have begged for my job back. They were
You could have
devastated.
turned around because you had your stuff there. You could have turned around. You could have driven back where all your friends were, where all you could have
My
bought
family
your
too.
house back. You could have got different. Your family was there. The life that you knew was there, but you're already on the way and you made a decision, which was a tough decision.
Mhm.
You stuck with it and you met your husband several months later. It's probably the courage, finding the courage, but also sticking with the courage, right?
It was a decision. And my husband and I didn't date for 7 years after we met. Like we didn't even go on our first date. We were just friends. So looking back at it, I realized this never would have happened. But honestly, there was something about seeing the bridge after like going up this hill and just tears streaming down my face. It was an intuition saying, if you're willing to move forward, I got you.
Listening to that inner compass is probably one of the most important, one of the most difficult things to do. What I find also absolutely fascinating about you is that I've engaged with you when I had no idea what you went through. You were completely focused, you're completely positive, and not in a fake kind of way. You're engaged and you're a really great listener. And like, wow, this is a really great coach. And then I found out what you have been going through. And that was not done when you were engaging with us on a very human, very professional level.
Yeah.
So what did it take for you? And I know you must have had dark moments. I'm sure you have dark moments right now. I know I do.
I
I
had
had
one today.
well, there you go. I had one yesterday. I had one like this morning when all this stuff was happening. So how do you pick yourself back up? Like what do? Do you have any techniques? Like do you breathe? Do you drink water? Do
Mhm.
you what do you do?
A lot. Breathing, first of all, yes, first and foremost, when your amygdala, the part of your brain that goes into fight or flight takes over, slow breath, so breathing out longer than breathing in, breathe out for 10, breathe in for 6, will regulate your nervous system. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I decided I'm going to still have good moments consciously. I just told myself, I'm willing to laugh. I'm willing to continue living. I had a lot of complications, and my surgery had me in bed for 3 months. I couldn't hug my child for months. It's just like the hardest, craziest thing ever. But it was just that conscious decision that I'm willing to have good moments. So showing up for our coaching calls when I was coaching the group you were in, it was just, I'm here for them. And there were moments where I just wanted to like shed a tear, you know, but in that moment, just saying, this isn't the time. I'm willing to cry after. I'm willing to go for a walk. We had a garden plot that I spent a lot of time growing fruits and vegetables that helped tremendously, just connecting with the earth and meditating. I meditated 2 hours a day, no matter what. That was my non-negotiable. And I'm very lucky that I have a partner who was able to give me that time and space, because not only was he working full time, but we had a 3-year-old at the time. So, you can't stick a 3-year-old in the corner and be like, you do your own thing. No, but yeah, hours a day of meditation changed my life. Truly, I don't think that I would be as healthy as I am now had I not put that practice into use every single day. It's just making a decision, and not everything is about that battle. I can still be Michelle 100%, even if that Michelle over there is battling. But I had to tell you guys because I took 6 months off.
I think of what you said with the story, but it's also about communication. I think if you communicate, you share a little bit of what you're actually going through, will connect with you on a completely different level. It's the relatability, but it's also like, oh my gosh, I really need to work on myself so much more because I have this person showing up for me where they maybe don't feel like showing up for me, but yet, here you are, 5%.
Yeah, but that's a lot of the coaching and training that I've been through, and the mindset credentials that I have saved my life. Because had I gotten this diagnosis a decade earlier, I don't think I would have fared quite as well as I did.
Something else that you teach, which I find really interesting, you teach money mindset.
Mhm.
So it is mindset, but it's also particularly money mindset. How did you arrive there?
Oh, I mean, I think honestly, a lot of it started with my own need, because when I moved to San Francisco specifically, I now was carrying a mortgage and a rent that I was not expecting to carry with no job. So it was a fortune. I mean, when we talk about having $300 in your pocket, I literally was going through my purses trying to add up quarters to get a slice of pizza to eat. I was at the absolute rock bottom I had ever been in my entire life in like every capacity. And I realized that if I couldn't get myself to the place of believing that everything can change for me, I wouldn't have taken the action. And then believing that I was worthy of receiving money, because I think the biggest disconnect between people who bring money into their life and who don't is the ability to receive it gratefully with no strings attached. And so for anybody listening to this or watching this now, if when you receive compliments from other people, you tend to shy away, or even if you say thank you, it hurts a little bit inside, you feel uncomfortable. It's that not willingness to receive good things that actually is one of the biggest money blocks that we have. It's our lack of capacity of receiving. And so when we talk about money mindset, people focus on money, but nobody really cares about the money. They just want to feel free. They want to feel ease. Like the paper is just paper. It's a representation of energy. Money is simply energy. So in teaching money mindset principles, it's really teaching all levels. So they are able to receive more love, better health, more opportunities, more fun, more, winning. And then we talk about I don't know if this is a good thing to share or a bad thing to share, but I'm the luckiest person you'll ever meet, or at least one of them. I have won first class trips to Japan, to Hong Kong, to London. I have won trips around the world. I find money on the street and I win it. Your name's in a lottery, like a raffle, I will win it. I think it just comes down to the belief that I'm willing to receive. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't know how else to explain it. Lucky girl syndrome.
It's interesting that you say it's the luckiest person in the world connecting to the belief. So, do you think it's possible to raise our frequency to the point where we believe that all the money can come in and all
Yes.
the connections can come in? How do you raise your frequency?
Oh, yes. Well, it starts with one belief above all else is everything's always working out for me. So people would turn to me and say, if you're so lucky, why did you get cancer? That's genetics. That's biology. It's lucky that I took my ass to the emergency room when no one would listen to me. It's lucky that they caught it when they did. It's lucky that I did the work to help myself. It's lucky that I shopped around oncologists and surgeons. So you can't control the circumstances that are given to you, period. But you can control how you react to them and the representation you have. When I got diagnosed, I wasn't like, I'm the unluckiest person in the world. No, it's like everything's working out for me. What is the best case scenario moving forward? If I got laid off from my job, okay, why did this happen? Not why did this happen to me, but why did this happen for me? What does this mean for me? What have I been putting out into the universe to bring this? Have I been thinking about how much I hate my job? Have I been thinking about how much I want to work for myself? Okay, universe was just putting the puzzle pieces into place for me on my behalf based on what I've been thinking and feeling. So if somebody, let's say somebody right now is $50,000 in debt, okay, I'll give you exact action steps to take. First step is to keep doing the work. People think that money mindset and shifts and energy is all sitting on your couch thinking things are going to work out for you. No, it is the belief system plus action. If somebody were to tell you, Mike Dooley said this on an interview 15 years ago, if you were told today that you are the luckiest person in the entire world and you are a fisherman, would you sit on your couch going, where are all the fish? Where are all the fish? I'm the luckiest person in the world. Or would you go down to Walmart or, Dick's Sporting Good, buy every fishing pole you could find and go straight to the lake? You would do the latter. But I think when people think about money mindset, they think, I'm thinking, I'm affirmationing, I have a vision board. Why isn't it working? Because you're missing the critical piece, which is action, inspired action specifically, right? So the first step would be to keep doing the work, but changing the belief system behind it. If you are broke and things are hard, find a way to be in the energy of, I'm okay and everything's going to work out for me. And what would the energy be like if you're 50,000 in debt right now to have 50,000 in the bank? Put yourself into that belief system while still doing the work. Because looking at your bank account every 5 minutes doesn't change your circumstance. Complaining about money doesn't change your circumstance. Telling everybody in the world it's so hard only makes it worse. What you focus on is what you bring in, right? Energy flows where attention goes. So that would be the biggest step, is focus your attention on what you want and keep doing the work.
Beautiful. And I thank you so much. This was an absolutely amazing conversation. I think had we had it on Thursday, it would have been different. But then again, every conversation is different.
Of
I'm
course.
so grateful to you and for you.
I'm
And
grateful for you too. And thanks for inviting me on. I feel honored.